Create React app is the most popular way to work with React, and in fact what happened is we're using SPA, single page application, and we're browsing through pages and it feels like you're on a mobile site. All the heavy lifting is being done on the client side, so we download the bundle and then JavaScript is being run at the client level and it's doing all the compilation, everything done on the client side. However, there are scenarios where doing the heavy lifting is better off to do it on the server side than on the client side. For example, imagine you have this big data that you need to crunch through and process, and it's being done on every time you load the page. You don't want to do it on every time a user load the page. You can do, if you can do it at one time, cache that and then use that on every time that the user load that page. So that's just one scenario. So there's scenarios that using server-side rendering is much better than single page application. Now, Create React app out of the box does not support SSR, and if you want to use SSR, you're going to need to eject. Eject meaning you're going to have to disconnect from all the configuration and you're going to have to take over on your own, so when changes are being made, they're not going to apply to your project because you ejected. So it's recommended, unless you really understand the configuration well and you know exactly what you're doing, it's recommended to, if you want to use SSR, just don't use Create React app. There are other libraries. I'll give you three that are very popular. Next.js, it's a very popular SSR library based on React. Gatsby and Razzle. So there's other libraries that are really built for that, and it's much better to start out of the gate with those libraries than try to convert a Create React app into an SSR. However, there are a few things that we can do in order to kind of take our Create React app and optimize it. So yes, you can work with those other libraries, but if you want to stay as a single page application, but you want to apply some caching and some things to kind of optimize your app to work offline, then we can do that. And I'm going to show you three things. I'm going to show you how to use React Snap. I'm going to show you how to use React Snapshot. And I'm going to show you how to work with the Webpack static sat generator plugin. So in this section, we're going to stay with Create React app. We're just going to optimize it a little bit. A good library to pre-render our pages so they can work on their own instead of having to load the entire bundle is React Snap, and it works really well with the single page application and with Create React app. So if you look at React Snap at their GitHub, they have about 4,000 stars, and what we can do is once we apply that to our project, each page that we route to is like a standalone. So once we do that, our client doesn't require that we load the entire bundle because each one of the route is like a standalone. So it does come in a price because there's going to be redundancy of code. So for example, if you have few routes that are sharing the same code, instead of putting everything in bundle, it's going to put them in each route on its own bundle. So you're going to have some redundancy. At the same time, everything is going to load faster, so we're going to use that. There's other projects that do the same thing. You can look it up, but we're going to use that. Just a heads up, the React Snap is using Puppeteer for the pre-render of your HTML pages, and then it's using the route to load your application automatically. So let's take a look. The first step is in terminal. We need to do a few things. The first thing we need to do is we need to add the React Snap. Since this is just being used for development, we can add the dev flag and we're going to load the library. Then another thing we need to do is inside of our package JSON, we need to configure it so it knows that we're going to use that React Snap for our post scripts. So inside of our scripts, you see we have the script tags, and inside of the script we can add a post script. Under analyzer, add another tag and call it post build, and we can tell the post build that we want to use React Snap. The static HTML is rendered almost immediately. They're unstyled, and because they're unstyled, it can cause an issue that it's called the flash for unstyled content, FOUD, flash of unstyled content. And what it means is that the page loads, but the style didn't get applied. And this is especially noticeable when you use CSS in JS libraries like we did in previous sections. And this can really cause that flash of the page load and then the style get added, and we don't want that. And so what happened is React Snap is using under the hood a third-party library that's called minimal CSS, and that can extract the critical CSS for the different route. So we weren't going to get that. So in order to enable that, we need to add another tag to tell our our package JSON to handle that when it does the build. And what we're going to do is just add another tag, and we're going to call it React Snap, and just add a tag of inline CSS to be true. This way it's going to load whatever is necessary. However, it's not going to guarantee you're not going to get that, so you need to really check what you're doing and what kind of CSS you're using and make sure it doesn't happen. But this little flag here is going to help you ensure it doesn't happen. Now, one more step we need to do is open the entry point index.tsx, and you can see that create React app must have libraries. I left you some comment here that shows you the process of what we've done so far. With the step one we've done, which is install and add the React Snap, we added the package JSON, post build, we added the package JSON, the inline CSS to true, and we need to replace the script that's already here. So here we're using React DOM, and we render our app router, and we're adding it into the root element of the document. And what we need to do is we need to replace that with this code here. So instead of using that single page application that we have here, we can comment that out, and we can replace it with this code here. And let's take a look at the code. Let's move the import to the top of the document. Okay, so yeah, we have duplicate. Okay, so now take a look at what we're doing now. Instead of calling React DOM render, we're doing an hydrate, and that hydrate is the process of really pre-caching our file, and then we're telling the service worker to register. So we're registering this process. If you don't want to load offline, you can set it to unregister, and keep in mind, and I wrote it here for you, that there are some pitfalls that it may not be worth it. So here's a link that gives you more information from Create React App. Now in terminal, if we want to build again, what we need to do is we need to run the yarn build, and what we added at the package JSON, that post build, that's going to get called automatically. So if everything works well, we're going to see that React Snap crawling through our router any pages that we add there. Let's take a look. Let's wait for the build to run. Here you go. So the build is completed, and you can see here a message automatically that React Snap got called, and you could see that it crawled one page. The page that it scrolled, it's whatever we have in the route. Now let's open up the app router, and you can see we have one route, which is the default that goes into our app, and that's what got routed, you see. Now if we want to add another router, what we can do is we can add another tag, and for example we can route our rectangle. So if you put our in the URL, if you put /rectangle, we can route a rectangle component that we created. And then if you go to, let's run local, let's see if you go to localhost and we put /rectangle, you see that gives us that component we built. Now if we go and we build our yarn build again, take a look. When it's finished building, we still got that only one page got crawled, just the default /. Why is that? The reason is that right now our rectangle is like a dead code. The reason is that we're not linking to it. So if we're not linking to our route, it's treating it as if it's a dead code that shouldn't even be on our app, right? So in order to get it crawled, what we need to do is we need to go to our app and we need to add the link so it will so we can click the rectangle from a page that is already crawled, and then it's going to treat it as a component that exists, and it will treat the router just like it does for the /. So let's take a look. So for example, I can use the a nav link, and I can have it navigate to rectangle, and it needs a key, so I'll give it a key of rectangle. And close the tag nav link, and inside the nav link I can just write navigate to rectangle, and the nav link is part of the router library. So make sure it allows me to import it. Let's see. It looks like it didn't import it, so we can just do it manually. So it's part of the React router DOM. Nav link. Okay. Nav link. Okay, make sure that we don't get any errors. It probably wants it up the hierarchy. Yeah. Okay. Now let's test the code. When we refresh localhost, you could see now we have a link, navigate to rectangle. So now we can actually navigate to our page. And let's build again. So yarn build. As you can see, now we got the rectangle page crawled.